My name is Maggie Daniel, and yes, you have the right podcast. This is Coaching for Profit, but this week we're switching things up just a little bit, and I'm going to be interviewing Brandon, our usual host, because he has an upcoming book he has a book that is out now, and so he's going to be telling us a little bit about it. And so normally our podcast is more of us talking about strategies and things for business owners to help them in their endeavors. But this week, we wanted to take a step back and talk a little bit about Brandon's book. It's called The E-Hero's Guide to Real Estate Investing. But before we get started with all of that, I kind of wanted to share a quick bio for those of you who may be tuning in for the first time on our usual host, Brandon Moore. And so you can get to know a little bit more about him and why you should buy his book. So Brandon is a certified wealth strategist, coach, real estate investor, CPA, and financial professional. Brandon is the current CEO and sole shareholder of BKMPC, Certified Public Accountants. He believes that his purpose is to coach and develop leaders. He wants his family, friends, and clients to become their best selves, which is why he writes books, hosts these podcast episodes, and is in the business that he's in. Brandon has had many successes as a businessman and looks to help others do the same. On a personal level, Brandon has an amazing wife, Angela, and 4 incredible kids. He likes to spend his free time playing multiple instruments and participating in martial arts. And that's just a very brief synopsis of who Brandon is. But so now that we've done that, let's get into it. So hi, Brandon. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for letting me host this week.
I'm excited about it. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thanks. I'm a little nervous. So I guess first things first, before we just kind of dive into the interview, why don't you just share with us a brief synopsis of your book?
Well, this book is really about the entrepreneur who wants to add cash flow. I wrote it in the perspective, not like a lot of the real estate books that you might get on the shelf or on Amazon today, that are how to step by step, a lot of details, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of analysis. But this was more of a, from the perspective of an entrepreneur, it also kind of was a memoir of our real estate journey from when we started shortly after graduating college till today. And all the mistakes and things that we did, plus a lot of the victories that we've had. So that's what makes it a little different, is it the perspective of coming from an entrepreneur that wants to add cash flow without having to add another full-time job.
So a little less textbooky and a little more almost like a novel, right?
Well, there's a lot of good stories. A lot of good stories. I started out with one of my favorite stories about me thinking that I could do something, do the job of a plumber and go underneath a house and fix some kind of gas line and end up getting stuck underneath the house. It was pretty scary for me, but
yeah, it was kind of scary. It was scary to read, honestly.
In hindsight, it's funny, but it was crazy that I even made the attempt. But yeah, that's what the book has, a lot of good stories like that.
That's funny because you start the book out talking about doing something that you've never done before. And this book is kind of something you've never done before. This is something new. So what made you decide to go into this new venture of your life?
This particular book, I wanted to write for a long time. I even started writing the outline of it probably in 2005. I mean,
oh, wow.
It's been in the back burner for a long time, but I never liked how it was developing, because it was developing more like a textbook, and I just hadn't developed any kind of writing style. And so after writing a couple of blogs and reading more books on business, and I mean, I read 25 to 30 books a year on business and psychology and relationships and all kinds of things to be a better person and be a better business owner, be a better employer, be a better husband. I kind of got a feel for what I thought the book should read and how the book should read. And so that's when I really started and pressed in and dove in.
So who do you think, like which of those business books do you think really influenced you the most? Do you have like a favorite or a favorite author that you really kind of look up to when it comes to your writing style?
I don't know. I really like Jim Collins. He writes several books about business, Good to Great, Great by Choice, Built to Last. Those are
I've
classics.
never heard that from you before. That was sarcastic for the listeners who don't know.
I probably mention it at every employee meeting that we have that they should, my staff should read it. But and then Patrick Lencioni, he writes some really interesting books that are read like a novel in their first several chapters, and then he goes and analyzes what happened and what needs to happen for your business. And so the good starting point for Patrick Lencioni would be the Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Really great book about building trust and seeing results.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Kind of going back to your book, though, who do you think would benefit the most from picking up and reading this book today?
Yeah, and it's a short book. It's only 40,000 words, just shy of 40,000 words, and it's I think the entrepreneur, somebody that's been in business a couple of years, maybe started to build up some extra cash, and wants to see some long-term investment. You've already got your retirement plan in place, but you still have excess cash. The government limits how much you can put in your retirement plan, and there's not very many investments that work like real estate to really add cash flow and net worth or wealth to your balance sheet, your personal financial statement. So that's who it was really written and directed for.
Yeah. And, like you mentioned, this book is obviously focused on real estate investing. But you have so much experience in other types of business ventures. So what made you choose to share your expertise on this particular subject over maybe say, becoming an accountant or being a business coach or something like that?
Yeah, the real estate part is because I really love real estate. We're passionate about it. It was something that we did as a family early on. Angela was the property manager, and she tote the kids around when they had to clean a house or whatever. They'd all be there. And of course, the kids weren't allowed to be around when I was remodeling, when I did the work myself, because they weren't allowed to hear those words come out of my mouth. So, which is another reason I stopped doing the remodel work. And I just did not like the person I was when I was doing it, and the cost benefit was always on the side of hiring somebody instead of doing it myself.
Yeah, yeah. When did you make that decision? Was that really early on? Okay, this is not for me. I'm going to hire this out. Or was it after you kind of got your feet wet and really had done most of your properties on your own?
Well, it got to be a point where I think after I bought my first practice and became a sole proprietor, I made more money doing my work than doing, being underneath the house or being, carrying my tool belt.
Right.
And then also, do you value your family time? What's important to you? And, that really was a big part of it is I would rather be spending time with my kids rather than working on a house.
Yeah.
Or working, being away from them.
Yeah.
It was already bad enough that I'm away from them during tax season for so long. At that time, I didn't want to do that the rest of the year because I was working on properties.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, some of our listeners, while they may be entrepreneurs, they may not necessarily be interested in navigating real estate investing, maybe not right now or maybe ever. So, but that's who we're talking to, is these entrepreneurs who have visions for the future, or maybe are current business owners. And so the reason I'm mentioning that is because I think being a writer takes a lot of courage and faith, and so does being an entrepreneur. So what advice do you have for someone who's looking to take their next big leap of faith, whether that be in real estate investing or in their next big entrepreneur path?
Yeah, and that's mentioned in my, I have another book that's coming out in May, and I think I jumped the gun on some of your questions, but it's called the e-hero's journey. It's your guide to the entrepreneur quest, and it's briefly mentioned in the real estate book that's out, but that book really talks about the journey an entrepreneur goes through, where they may be dissatisfied from their current lifestyle and they want something more. They know that there's something better out there for them. And so, starting a business is something that they want to do, or being in business for themselves. They might be a carpenter working for a builder, but maybe they want to be a builder on their own. And taking that first step, that leap of faith, it does take. But what happens is you have to be dissatisfied with where you're at, to make that choice. And then, as mentioned in the book, the real estate guide, there's, when you have mentors and coaches that are around that you can ask questions, they can help you along the way. And also, kick you in the butt when you're not doing what, when they're giving advice and you're not doing anything with it. Like I mentioned that Pastor Darrell, who was the Indiana Jones of mission work for our church, was also a real estate agent and a real estate investor, and who I bothered constantly for years about real estate questions. And, he looked at me and said, "Brandon, at some point you're going to have to pull the trigger. You're going to have to do something." And so, that those people around you that might help you make that first step are important.
Yeah. And that's actually one of the things that I've really latched on. I'm embarrassed to say that I haven't quite finished your book. To be fair, I just got it on
Right.
Wednesday. But that's something that I really latched on in the real estate book, is you talk a lot about having your team and having a team behind you and a team with you, and who those people are. And you list out who those types of people are for real estate investors, but every type of entrepreneur would have maybe those same kind of types of team members. So for example, your mentors, your lawyers, whatever, but maybe other types of team members. But I just thought that was so relevant. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, your team is important. Who you have with you is important. And one of my questions was, could you talk on that? But I think that you just did. You touched on how big that is, no matter what. So
yeah, team building is a necessary aspect of business today. Nobody gets to where they want to be on their own. Now that doesn't mean that you shouldn't receive accolades for your hard work and the drive. That passion comes from within. But I have, anytime somebody asks me how do you do what you do, and I tell them I have the best staff and people around me that I've ever had. We have fantastic people work for us. You've got a great team of operations and admin. Mm-hmm. Our tax managers have a fantastic team of tax preparers, working with them, and the collaboration that's happened even just in the last several years about, where we were in collaboration to where we are now, is just amazing. And I can see the acceleration in the firm is totally attributable to the team work that's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah. But that's not just your staff, like what you mentioned. It's even the people for you as the business owner, those people who are on your side outside of the CPA. Right. So right now we're talking about the CPA firm, but outside of the CPA firm, those team members who have your back, who they're your team, not your team members, but your team. They're your, and anyways, I thought that was great in your book. How did those, so not talking about your staff, because, we talk about staffing in the podcast normally. I think you have an episode on that already. And I think it's one of the smaller ones, and I'm sure we'll touch on it again another day on the Coaching for Profit podcast. But when it comes to like your team, so like the people who helped you build your businesses, how did you go about finding those? Are those just people you stumbled upon, or are those people that you actively looked for?
It is funny. It's like when I tell, used to be a young adults director, and I would talk to people about finding their spouse. And really the way to find a spouse is you press towards what you're called to do, what you're supposed to be here on this earth to do. And you will look around and see somebody going in the same direction. And that's how you'll find who you're supposed to marry and who you're supposed to be with. And I think your team members, your strategic partners, I was talking to somebody, a chiropractor this morning, and we were talking about her and her husband trying to build their business and how to find those referrals. And I asked her, well, what kind of strategic partners do you have? And she, talked about several different kinds. And so, with the firm, with our businesses, with the financial services company, we pressed towards our goals. And we looked up, and at one time, ironically, I looked across the hall in Cedar Park and found another CPA that was, all he does was audit. And he became a strategic partner. He became somebody that, spoke into my life, and hopefully I spoke into his, and we helped each other be better at our process and our businesses. When we bought our first house, we were introduced to Hant Beasley and him as our attorney and closing company was an amazing person and had, just a positivity about him that we just realized we just wanted to be around him. We wanted him to help us, and we wanted to help him as much as we could. And so that's when you're pressing towards what you're supposed to do, and you see people around you, and you can help them, and they can reciprocate. Even if they can't reciprocate, eventually down the road, you're going to receive from that relationship.
That's great, and that's awesome. If your readers could take away one thing from your book, what should it be? That's kind of a loaded question, so I'm sorry.
There is a theme to the book, and I think the biggest thing is to have faith and to do it. To just, it's in the conclusion. What are you going to do now? What's your next step? Are you just going to take this book and say, "Hey, that was a great book," and put it on the shelf, or are you going to do something with it? And I'm glad that you got something out of it that's non-real estate.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different stories and so many applications and so much information there, even in a small book like it is, that you can take and apply to any business that you own.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of already talked a little bit about your next project that you said it's coming out in May. Is that right? Your next book?
Cross your fingers. That's when it should come out. I finished it actually before I finished the real estate book, but we did a different publishing process on it. And so this publishing process is taking a little longer than I had expected or even wanted, but it will come out in May. It's called The E-Hero's Journey. It's your guide to the entrepreneur's path. It takes the hero's journey from fiction. If you've heard of that, it's where the hero is an ordinary person is disrupted in their life, and they have to make a choice to do something or not do something, and they decide to do it and go on this quest. And during the quest, they face internal, external obstacles. And during those obstacles, they become a better person. And at the end, when they conquer and are victorious, they entered into this better life that wasn't available before. And that when I read that in a novel or a book about writing novels, and immediately when I first heard it, I was like, you know what, that really sounds a lot like the journey that every entrepreneur goes through.
Yeah.
And so I immediately started writing, and that's how it came about.
That's great. I'm excited. I can't wait to read it.
It was a lot more fun to write, and I think I've got a lot of good stories in that as well. keep people entertained as well as give them really good information, especially the entrepreneurs. And I wrote that for the young adult entrepreneur, the person that's 18 to 25 that wants to do something that's not the traditional go to college, get your degree, get a job in that area field, work 30 years for one company. Then that's not happening anymore anyway. But there's a lot of people that are told when they're in high school that, the way to be successful is get a job or get a good education and get a job. But the truth is that there's a lot of different paths to success.
Absolutely.
And they don't talk about it because those other paths are messy.
Yeah, they're harder.
and they take a lot more determination and grit from the individual, but they are definitely doable. And they're definitely, people are doing it all over the place.
Right.
People are succeeding in life in non-conventional ways.
That's great. Oh, I'm excited. I can't wait to read that one. Not that I'm not enjoying the current one. I'm just,
Sure. I've also got another book that I'm working on because, again, I finished the 2 books, and so I'm starting the 3rd one. And it's called The Beginning of Wealth. Okay. This one I'm pretty excited about because it goes really hand in hand with the e-hero's journey, in that if you pursue the e-hero's journey and then follow the 7 wealth behaviors, which the subtitle is Reach Financial Independence Through the 7 Wealth Behaviors. If you combine the 2, you are going to be successful. It is one of the things about this book is that every chapter opens with a verse from Proverbs. And in one of the chapters, I talk about wisdom, and it was really hard not to quote Proverbs over and over and over again, but I did it. So, but yeah, you should. When this book comes out, I really believe it's going to be a great tie into that e-hero's journey and help people find financial independence, not just a good job.
Awesome. Great. That's exciting stuff coming up. And people can find access to all of these books through your website, right?
Yes, they will be able to. Once the next one's published, it'll be on the website and linked to Amazon and to all the other platforms that you can get digital books from.
Great. Yeah. And just so our listeners know, because there's a lot of places you can reach us, but the website for the books is www.brandonkmoore.com. And Brandon's also on Instagram at Brandon K. Moore. You can also follow the CPA firm at BKMPC Certified Public Accountants on Facebook. And so if you follow us on any or all of those places, that's where you can find. Currently, the real estate book is live there. And then the next books will be there shortly, hopefully in May, and then in the future. So I kind of want to just wrap this interview up with just some generic questions just about your experience writing books, because I know this was a new experience for you. And
yes, that's awesome.
I think it's, I just kind of wanted to just kind of be nosy here. So what would you say is the most rewarding part of this experience of writing your first books?
Finishing.
Great.
There's a course that I took from Scribe Media. Just give them some props. One of the founders of Scribe Media, Max Tucker, has written 5 New York Times bestsellers. He offers a free course on writing nonfiction, and then has a book that he wrote on writing nonfiction, which he gives to you for free.
Oh, wow.
In a PDF version. So a lot of great information. Now, that was the beginning of the writing process, is learning how to, as far as the step-by-step. But then developing my own style within that overall outline, because I did things a little differently on the second book, on the e-hero's journey. But yeah, the rewarding part too is knowing that this information, these stories will be captured in print for my kids and for their kids.
That's great. Now, what would you say the most challenging part of writing the books has been?
There are lots of days where I just don't want to write. And, trying to keep up a pace where I set my own deadlines. I don't have a publisher. I don't have anybody. These are all indie published. And so trying to set my own deadlines and set my own schedule and force that discipline of, I want to write this many words a day or I try to do this many words a week, like 2,000 words a week is what my goal is. That's pretty high, but I do have more time now than I used to.
Yeah.
And then keeping with that. And then, once you get into the 7th or 8th chapter, and this happened in both the first 2 books, is I just wanted to be done.
Yeah.
I just wanted it to be finished. And
yeah,
I almost, there was a chapter that in the real estate book, I almost just nixed because I just hated writing it. And that was the forms of ownership on the real estate guide is because it sounded more textbooky than stories. And it was difficult to muddle through. It's good information. It's necessary information. You can't have a real estate book without talking about it. And so I had to put it in.
Yeah.
So I just had to get through it.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners about this book or your future books before we kind of wrap things up on this?
These books are whether any sell or not, I'm going to keep writing. But I really do hope people get the information and get excited about real estate, get excited about owning a business. One of the things I talk about in the entrepreneur's journey is the benefits of a business in the community, and the fact that somebody who starts a business is providing, not just providing a service, but he's solving a problem. And so it's really the highest call is to solve people's problems. And you do it for a reasonable fee, and you provide that service, but then you also in the future provide jobs, you provide commerce. Most business owners also donate to charities and Little League and all that in their communities. Mm-hmm. And so just the value of business gets a bad name from media, and most young people in public schools and even some charter and private schools don't always get the full truth on owning a business. They see it as something where you're about, the risk of failure is high and the happiness is low. And so they don't want anything to do with it. And the opposite is actually true.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing with us this information and all of the details about your upcoming books. And like I said, I'm super excited for their next one to come out. And I just wanted to really quickly thank our listeners for tuning in. This has been a unique episode of Coaching for Profit where the roles were switched just a little bit, but I hope people can join us again next time for one of our regular episodes where you will take back the hosting duties. So with that being said, I guess listeners, please make sure to subscribe to us wherever it is that you're listening to us. You can find us on social media at Brandon K. Moore on Instagram, BKMPC Certified Public Accountants on Facebook. We are Coaching for Profit, where profit equals your potential minus your barriers.